After the roller coaster of 2020, more than ever, it's important that we analyse the lessons and insights we all gleaned from the past 12 months and consider their impact on the future of the industry. After all, 40% of survey respondents described the year as being significantly worse than the previous 12 months, and more than 80% of businesses changed their business plans during COVID. Unsurprisingly, more than 80% began investing more in their digital strategy, and more than 70% experienced an increase in online sales. During our webinar today, we'll discuss how retailers are feeling about this new era of retail as we continue to deal with the impacts of COVID. And don't forget, we want you to be part of the conversation too. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box to the right, and I'll put them to the panel during our discussion. And the first 5 people who have their questions asked will receive a 12-month digital subscription to Inside Retail Professional. So to kick things off, I feel like perhaps one of the most overused terms in the past year has been the new normal and unprecedented. These are words we've all heard countless times in the past 12 months. But I'm actually really interested to find out what a successful modern retailer looks like these days. Chris, do you want to kick us off and share with us what your thoughts are on that?
Thank you, Joanne, and good afternoon, everyone. So I think one of the things that we've seen in the past year was that there's a lot of pivot towards a renewed interest in making sure that their digital journey is there. So a lot of brands have now taken into serious look their digitization journey, and we've seen that in how they pivoted their business. But for people like us, retailers like us, one of the things that we've started to pivot towards too is also how do we help then our brand partners navigate this new normal, as you said. So in the past year, we've already been, aside from making sure that we provide consumer engagements and make sure that consumers get access to the brands that they want and love, we also are now helping brands navigate through some of our services. We've offered them fulfillment as a service. We've also given them options to have data as a service, because we do have this repository of data that can help them navigate the whole situation happening on real time. And of course, we've also helped them with some of the marketing stuff, because a lot of the global brands in Southeast Asia would probably need to localize a lot of their efforts in order to connect with consumers in a very diverse region like Southeast Asia. So there's a pivot, definitely, but it's an exciting pivot because a lot of consumers are now embracing the digital. A lot of brands are also embracing the digital.
Yeah. I think it's particularly exciting, especially for regions where e-commerce adoption was quite low. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later on. But I think that's a particularly exciting part of what's happening right now. Adam, obviously, Tumi has physical retail as well as online. But what are your thoughts on what a modern retail means now?
Yeah, look, for a brand like Tumi, where we make a lot of products, and we have a brand that's almost 50 years old, and I think we're in the boat of a lot of brands where it's a lot of the basics really still matter. Where you want to be successful, you still want to be creative and innovative. You want to be agile, and you want to be where the consumers are. So from a channel perspective, it means exactly what Chris is talking about. Making sure that you have the right digital tools, strategy, that makes sense for your brand and your customer. From the product side as well, continuing to bring innovative products and ideas, to the market. And the third kind of element that I think is becoming much more important, more and more, is the brand storytelling piece. People really want to connect with the brand and the brand's values. And so now you have constant communication, and the expectation for the consumer is really that your brand stands for something, and that you're able to articulate your brand story in a way that's relevant for the customer today. So I see that happening, of course. Joanne, you mentioned online and offline. Both are incredibly important, especially for a brand like Tumi, where offline is part of the experience that people desire.
Yeah, I feel like even before COVID, that brand storytelling piece has become more and more significant. You know, and retail these days, you know, it's not like how it used to be. It's not about just selling product on the shelf anymore. Like people are buying into your brand and the story behind it and the values behind it. So I think that's particularly significant right now. Imran, what do you reckon modern retailers need right now in this new normal? What does the new normal mean?
Well, it feels like it's the old normal. Even this, and I'm Melbourne-based. I'm back in lockdown myself. But you know, everyone's healthy and safe, and that's the most important thing. You know, what Adam and Chris have mentioned already. You know, they mentioned things like analytics, insights, and brand values. There was a recent report by Mastercard across APAC where they showed 70% of all generations, especially millennials, Gen Z, will move based on the values, not cost. So that has been amplified. Was always there, but that is really driving home. The way we look at it is, and feedback we get from many retailers is the paradigm shift of the old models. Firstly, bricks and mortar is not dying. Physical stores are part of the experience, but they have to change in how they operate and provide more experience than the point of purchase. So the model of the pull paradigm, or you come to us, is shifting for retailers to shoppers engage beyond the four walls. So, the term we use is meet the shoppers where they are. So, shoppers will engage in how they want to. And, we've got some interesting stats where first-time purchases normally happen in the physical store, but there's a 70% chance the second purchase won't happen in the physical store. It'll either be like a marketplace or it'll be digital. But the store gives a great service experience to test things, but then convenience comes from the other channels. So, some stats, Gen Z's during COVID or during pandemic, 2 times out of 3 they're buying from social channels like Fortnite. My kid plays Fortnite. They can buy on there. You can buy actually, TikTok, Facebook. So there is a shift, and it's all about experience and values. Fundamentally, if you have strong values, provide a good personalized. So the data is there to provide personalization. So if you hit that, then consumers will be.
Yeah. So according to the Asian Retail Outlook survey that we did, almost 78% of retailers are worried about the impacts of COVID right now, and that's followed by changing consumer confidence and rental overheads. But Imran, from your experience, what would you say are some of the challenges that are keeping retailers up right now at night?
Well, I guess the key things is how do you personalize, and individual shoppers don't want to be a transaction, they want a relationship. So, the biggest challenge is it's not data. Retailers actually have abundance of data, but how do you use that to drive a relationship that matters and is aligned to the needs? So for me, it's, don't be transactive, use data to build a concept of loyalty. And, shoppers will shop for different reasons. Marketplaces provide them more variety. A lot of retailers are actually creating their own marketplaces now, so they're aligning to those needs, and brands do quite a bit more of that unique experience, like customized products. So, during the lockdown, also the other thing is safety. Retailers are also very concerned about their staff and their well-being, and they've also, pivoted dark stores, especially like in Australia, where and other parts stores were closed. They pivoted to a virtual clienteling model and use the dark stores to engage in a digital way. So, those are challenges if you don't have agile technology and software so you can pivot very quickly. Even virtual clienteling. In the school, we're helping someone. Mecca came up with COVID, especially for the female rights, the female side, they came up with like a digital social updates on how to make yourself look good from the waist up for webinars, and they were executing that for the social channel, and they're doing pick up on store, buy online, so they could just pick up when the stores were closed. So those kind of things, I think a lot of retailers catch up to the new behaviour patterns.
Yeah. Adam, what are your thoughts on some of the major challenges that retailers are dealing with at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, Imran, I couldn't agree more with everything you said. You really answered that question very well, recapping a lot of the things that are certainly on my mind for sure. Certainly when I wake up every morning, we're a brand that has lots of stores, so my first sort of instinct is now kind of seeing which brand or which market is open, which one's closed, which one had a change in policy overnight,
Wow.
and staff safe. Honestly, that's really the first thing I think about every day when I wake up in the morning is just making sure, hey, what's going on? Is everyone safe? Do we need to do anything? So, that's really probably the first thing I think of, on a daily basis, but on a strategic basis, and I think is exactly right. It's, the pace of innovation, especially in the digital environment, so quickly, is so fast, and quite frankly, so many people are now participating. So not only are you challenged to keep up with the pace, as Imran mentioned, but then you have the challenge of how do you stand out in a more crowded ecosystem. And I think that's where your strategy of brand storytelling, targeted audiences, leveraging that data that you have from multiple points of engagement really comes into play. So critically. So that creativity, that agility, that being where the customer are, that grounding, is really what people I think have to think about every day in this new world. But again, I think it's really about not only keeping up with that digital pace of the customer, but also standing out.
Yeah. Well, Christopher, Zalora being an e-commerce player, it's your time to shine. Like, what are you finding? In the past year, what are some of the things that you guys are finding challenging right now?
So it's slightly different from what most offline retailers are probably going through. But for us, jumping from the point that Adam made, it's really about being able to stand out. I think customer experience has always been a priority for any e-commerce player, primarily because you need to bridge the gap between expectation and the reality. Customer experience is really one of those things that can make or break a person, whether or not they're going to shop again with you, or going to jump and try another retailer and buy from them instead. So customer experience is pretty important, and that's why I think it's always a challenge for e-commerce players to always look at innovation, but at the same time be guided by data and shifting trends. I think one of the things that we've done in the previous year was really to look at, aside from the assortment plays a pretty critical role for us. For example, when the first wave hit most of our markets, we immediately had to pivot towards offering other products aside from fashion in order to keep up with the demand and make sure that we're still top of mind for a lot of these consumers. And of course, when it comes to innovation, bridging the gap means finding ways on whether or not you offer new payment methods, especially in markets like Southeast Asia, where e-commerce is at its infancy. We needed to make sure that we guide these consumers into their journey towards becoming e-consumers, because it's not easy for a lot of traditional markets to shift all of a sudden. So you need to make the experience really stand out and the experience really seamless for them in order for them to actually acquire that shopping bug online.
Yeah. We've actually got a question from one of our audience members. Ash has jumped in nice and early. So I've got a question here, and I'm going to put it to you guys, and you guys just let me know which one who would like to answer. So Ash has got a question here around what would your foresight be in terms of demand and challenges in regards to talent skills? It's a great question. What are some of the upcoming competencies or desirable skills required to thrive in the retail industry right now? Who would like to tackle that one?
I can answer briefly. So one of the things I think I've learned, I came from a very traditional PR. I used to do PR for very traditional fashion brands. That's my background. But one of the things that I had to learn when I joined Zalora was really to get my hands dirty with data and insights. I think part and parcel of a modern retailer is being able to make sense of numbers and look at data and trends as part of their day-to-day job. I think marketers and even communication practitioners like me would need to necessarily know where some of these trends are going and be able to interpret numbers, not just because they're there, but because it's giving you a North Star in order for you to be guided in what you do next.
Yeah. Have you guys noticed any changes in terms of what leaders might be looking for in terms of staff these days? Are there any other skills or attributes that you think might be different now in a post-pandemic world?
Yeah, I might quickly jump in. So looking more forward, we talk about experience and stuff, and if you look at industries, where industry create great experiences and stuff, a lot of games designers and programmers, if you look at Fortnite, TikTok, so there is a view, and there's a view from futurists that the retail industry needs to gamify, and the retail designs need to come from coders in the future. Hiring people who come from those industries would also change the experience to make it interesting. So that's probably more long term. But yes, there's definitely a strong view in the industry of bringing in those kind of thinkings into at least the design of the physical store and linking the digital to the physical. A lot of this isn't, it's about connecting the dots. So if I walk into a store, normally 90% of the time, it's probably the same to me. You don't know who they are to then go to the cash register, but they probably spent 10, 5, 6 minutes in the store. Wouldn't it be great if as I walked in, I was addressed to who I am and just had that conversation? So that's kind of that gamification experience.
Yeah, I think as I see the market evolving, you're seeing a lot less orientation towards a transactional environment, both online and offline. And so as that migration happens from transactional to more experience and service related, like Chris was talking about, I think you look for talent who can help to navigate what that means for every brand. It means certainly lots more data orientation, so you need to have folks who are really focused on that and helping people interpret and understand. But at the same time, for a brand like Tumi, where we still have lots of physical locations, it's still that one-on-one experience that is so incredibly critical. So we don't take our eye off of that. That no matter what, there's always a customer at the end, whether it's a digital experience or an offline experience. And so I think that's the kind of skills and of course the culture around that. Maintaining the culture around that, especially in a world now where people may be working remotely, they may be working in an office, and how do you continue to cultivate that culture in the company to make sure that you deliver on that brand promise and that experience. So I think those are the kind of things that kind of come to mind as well when I think about what's the future kind of talent needs and things that are thought about.
Yeah, I find that in the past year, when I've spoken to CEOs about how they found COVID, especially in terms of their workplaces and their work culture, the ones that have been able to successfully pivot and, launch great new exciting initiatives at a very quick rate are the ones that had that culture already in place in terms of pivoting very quickly, that it's that agile that being flexible, that sort of mindset. And I think that's sort of what it is at the end of the day, obviously you want all the tools and, the right kind of tech to back that up. But if you don't have that right mindset, I feel like, we all know of there are definitely really big, businesses out there that found it very hard to switch during the past year, but it's the ones that had that culture in place already that were able to move. And I think that's where we're going in the future. At the end of the day, we don't know when the pandemic will end.
No.
We don't know when there's going to be another lockdown, right? Like, I think that's key.
Correct, and brands couldn't reach the end consumers, so people shifted brands, and people got used to now psychologically being open to shifting brands. There have been reports at least now showing that people will shift brands more now, whereas in the past, before COVID, they were loyalists. They were more sticking to a brand name. There's less of them based on being forced, and then finding it's actually okay to sometimes shift brands.
Well, speaking of, being able to respond to changes quite quickly, let's talk a little bit about how businesses responded to changing consumer behaviour in the past year. Adam, do you want to start us off with some of the changes that Tumi made during COVID?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, John, to your point earlier, I think certainly I find myself very lucky to work at a brand that is very entrepreneurial and very innovative, driven at its DNA, and has so many terrific people all over the world who every single day are so passionate about our brand's mission, our values, and continuing them on, even during these kind of challenging times. So, I think our creative director, all the way down to the folks on the front line, everyone is really working on this laser-focused mission to continue to deliver outstanding experiences and products to the consumer. And so, as we've gone into the changing environments here, I think we've more or less been, I think, able to navigate a lot of because of our DNA, but also because we've made some pivots on the channel and product perspective. I think that made us really more nimble to handle customer behavior. On the channel perspective, we've been investing in digital for quite some time now. To be honest, we've been doing augmented reality type of experiences, updating our websites, creating new environmental mini programs, etc. for years. Now we really accelerated that and started to really fine-tune and sharpen the pencil on our online to offline strategy, and even introducing things where there's just a practicality to it. Where, for example, we did recently we launched our a virtual store, and on the virtual store, there's a feature that allows you to superimpose in virtual reality a life-size version of our bags. So it's things like this. Because really one of the practical things, and one of the things we always hear is, especially in digital selling, how big is it? It's hard to tell. What's the difference between a 24-inch suitcase and a 27-inch? It's hard to. Yeah, you can draw a box and tell someone to cut out a piece of paper. But that's not really practical, and it's not as fun. So I think we've been doing a lot of things like this to really refine our digital experience, bring everything together so that it's informative, engaging, easy, and fun for the customer. So I think that's one big thing that we've done to respond to the pandemic, more of an acceleration of our existing strategy. And then on the product side, we haven't stopped innovating. Certainly we've been, we're very well known as a travel bag brand, maybe a luggage brand. But over the years, we've really pivoted into backpacks, sling packs, day-to-day bags, and those particular items really are the ones that have been very strong for us during the pandemic. So we really leaned into those products and our storytelling around journeys that are more day-to-day, so that there's a bit more of a relevancy to the current conditions. And recently, we launched a collaboration with McLaren, and also we did our first ever luxury line of esports and gaming bags. So again, leading into a lot of the things that are more relevant to folks today in their environments, and that's something that I think we're very proud of at Tumi for being that kind of brand who can pivot and always innovate to be relevant no matter what the situation.
Yeah, I think especially when you are a brand like Tumi that has such a great heritage behind it, it's really important to be able to stay true to the values, but then, continually come up with initiatives that keep it relevant, and you're still able to acquire new customers along the way as well. So I think it's really great that you're, looking at things like gamification, like Imran mentioned before, to maintain your relevancy and interest and keep things exciting, right?
Absolutely.
Christopher, can you tell me a little bit about the changes that Zalora made last year in terms of responding to changing consumer behavior?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Joanne. So I think I've mentioned earlier that wowing the customer or customer experience is really a priority for us, and part of that is really the assortment that we offer. Product will always be the thing that will make customers go to your site. So we did recognize that there is a lot of categories that were hit by the pandemic. For example, occasion wear, office wear. These are categories that usually are traditional money makers for retailers like us. But it has been hit by the pandemic because people are not going out. They're not going to buy their next party dress. They're not going to buy their office wear and all that stuff. But we've seen sparks, and we pivoted a lot of our assortment afterwards when we see that there's growth opportunities in the other categories. For example, we've seen people pick up a lot more interest, and this has grown, in triple-digit growth in sports and wellness. We've seen beauty, increasing towards in the middle of the pandemic, and even categories like kids. And surprisingly, one of the more resilient categories that has experienced triple-digit growth for us was luxury. People are buying luxury products, and we're seeing that this has been fantastic category to grow, and we've been growing that in the last few 10 months that we've had, and even increasing some of that assortment. This has always been a guide that's guided by data, and it's something that we've always been pretty proud of. We've also helped a lot of our brand partners navigate this with our data. So part of the evolution that we've had to do is to not only become a platform where people buy or platform where brands just put their products in, but really an enabler in their digital journey. So in the last few months, we've also rolled out some of our services to brands. For example, data as a service has always been, a big enabler for us that we've been doing with our brand partners. We've done fulfillment as a service. So there are specific brands, for example, Mango and Puma in some markets, even if you order in brand.com or Zalora or even in the other e-commerce retailers, it's actually fulfilled by Zalora. Being able to navigate, for example, islands in the Philippines and Indonesia alone combined has 30,000 islands. To be able to deliver, that Nike shoe, that Puma shoe, to remote islands is something that we've cracked way ahead than normal brands, and we've been offering this service to brands in the middle of the pandemic in order for customers to still have access to their products and brands to actually have that channel available for them. More importantly, we've also had, again, I mentioned marketing as a service, because connecting to the local audience is pretty important right now. Gone are the days when a global campaign resonates to everyone. With a woke audience right now and hyper-local markets like Indonesia or markets like Malaysia, you probably need to have a local face, a local flavor to it. Looking at the diversity of Southeast Asia, we needed to help a lot of these global brands localize a lot of this campaign. So in the midst of the pandemic, we've evolved to not only become a platform where they sell, but a platform as a partner in their digital journey. And I think we're pretty proud of how we've changed in the last few months for this.
Yeah. Actually, this might be a good time to segue into a question from Denise, who's just put forward a question. What are some of the actions or examples that your companies have made to improve consumer connection and brand loyalty? Christopher, would you like to continue on from there?
So, yeah, no problem. So I think one of the big things we've done last year was we've rolled out our sustainability strategy, a first for any Southeast Asian e-commerce brand. We've actually published our sustainability report from the onset in last April. So we actually are reporting to our consumers and brand partners how we fared with the sustainability targets we've put. This created a lot of brand love for Zalora, because not only did we have targets, we have actually enabled a lot of sustainable brands to be on the platform. We've actually created Earth Edit, where you can buy sustainable products or products that are made from sustainable materials, and even use sustainable materials in partnership with Tencel in our private label. So we've offered capsule collections in order to do that. We've also had circular fashion as part of our offering. So we are now selling secondhand luxury items on Zalora. And it's part of that sustainability strategies to make this something a little bit more normal for people and have access to products and brands that offer sustainable products. And aside from that, we've also looked at innovation. We've looked at how we can make lives a little bit easier for customers. For example, we've launched our buy now, pay later programs and payment methods in all our markets. This made it easier for people who wanted to buy things in bulk or probably wanted to have that big purchase, a little bit easier for them to purchase that. And it's part of that customer experience wherein we know that cost is a factor, or that there's a little bit apprehension, but we still want them to be able to afford that little joy of buying that particular shoe that they like. If they want to have new running shoes, be accessible for them. So I think small things like that contribute to the general customer experience and create connections with customers.
Yeah. Adam, did you want to mention anything about what Tumi has been doing in terms of improving customer connection and brand loyalty in the past year?
Well, sure. Imran hasn't gone in a while. I don't want you to feel left out there.
Go ahead, Adam. Great to hear from you.
No, I think a lot of the things that Chris said, and I think that's terrific. Tumi also has a sustainability strategy, and I think one of the things, again, as we we navigate here and as we move again towards an environment that's less transactional and more experience oriented, I think it's really creating that one-on-one connection as much as possible. Whether that be a virtual selling. To me in particular, I think one of the things we've accelerated a lot is our CRM and clienteling initiatives. So, it's a huge focus for us as a brand, really trying to exceed customer expectations every time they have an engagement with us. And I think that's kind of the mentality that we take when we speak to people about our products, about our brand, and just as we build relationships, we think of them as very long term. I think that, Joanne, as you mentioned before, that culture, I think, is what helps. It's sort of hard to fully put your finger on what that magic is. But that really, I think, is what we're trying to achieve. That's something very authentic. It's something very true to Tumi. And it's really based on this one-on-one, individualized service to each customer at all the touch points. I think that's really our, our take and our approach on how to achieve that.
Yeah.
I'll just add here. Sorry, go ahead, Joanne.
Oh, well, I was actually going to say, I know that you've got some thoughts around loyalty in the past year, and it was actually going to throw it to you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I mean, it's great insights from both Christopher and Adam. There's been a common thread here: values-driven and experience, and loyalty, and ultimately to get that customer experience and personalization, it comes down to one raw ingredient: having that single source of data, having that customer or consumer information. So having a platform that can so you can connect the dots because they'll engage with you through different channels at different times. So so loyalty is actually a data strategy as a concept. Because loyalty can be different things. There's behavioral loyalty, which everyone knows. It's points based. You hit the target. You have them with airlines. You have them with retailers, and then you can get something in return. But the shift is now to belief loyalty, which is the experience. If you can make it easier for me to engage with you and you align with my beliefs, and you can add experiences and let me connect when I want, that belief loyalty is harder to do, but that's what gives you the long-term revenue and the long-term customer lifetime value. So, with people, I think there was a question I saw about this behavior. Is it temporary? Will it go back to the old way? Well, I think that the proven it takes 30 days to form a habit. But we were put into an enforced way of living where I was forced to order online. Shops were closed. I couldn't eat in the restaurants. I did takeaways. And after about 2 months, it became normal. So even now, when things go to normal, I personally will still use more online mechanisms to order stuff I already know about. Because I've got used to it. So now I don't believe we're going to shift back. There will be a balancing. But there will be a different shifting. Our research and a lot of retailers we speak to, from big stores to small companies, they're shifting from needs to wants. The experience, which both Adam and Chris have mentioned, on the go, engage how I want to engage, style, and there's going to be built indulgence. I think someone mentioned luxury products going up. A lot of people are craving to get out, and they will be doing a bit of a splurge as well. So there will be a bit of a peak, I think, in the near future.
I'm actually really glad that someone brought up luxury, because one of the things that I think we don't talk about too much is around those customers that, financially were, did pretty well in the last year, especially, if they had a big grand trip to Europe planned, that's been put on hold. So rather than spend that money on, a global tour, they'll spend it on, diamonds instead. I can't say that I personally have the same experience. But, I feel like there is a whole customer base out there that, are looking for new ways to indulge and enjoy themselves, especially because travel is down in some parts of the world. And then, depending on where you are, dining, restaurants, that sort of thing as well, that's down too. So I think it's really important for people to remember that there is that growing customer base out there. Definitely. I'd really like to talk a little bit about the role of physical retail, because in the survey that we ran recently, 51% of respondents revealed that online only accounts for about 10% of their revenue at the end of the day. So even though it's e-commerce is, rising, there's still a place. It seems like there's still a place for physical retail. So this is a good question for Adam. What are your thoughts on, consumers' appetite for physical retail?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the hot buzzwords now are, growth in digital and these things, and for sure that's happening. I think there's no doubt that the amount of engagement with brands that's going to be digital is going to be, in the majority. As people, are constantly on their phones, social media. These are places where people are, hours and hours a day, and just the mathematics of how long you're on your phone and using these things versus in physical places. It's it's bound to be that digital is the predominant means of communication. But I 100%, and definitely speaking from the luxury and premium segment, believe that physical retail still has a very important place to play, because luxury is more than just buying a product. Brands mean more than just the intrinsic value of what they are, and part of that experience is physical, is being in the boutique, experiencing the environment, smelling the smell, speaking to the staff who have been working at the brand for 10, 12 years and learning about it. I for sure think that the role of the store will still be an important one. No matter what the projections are on e-commerce growth and all these kinds of things, those things will happen. But from the luxury perspective, the experience, the physical location is still an incredibly critical part of that experience from storytelling and branding moment. So I think that the offline environment will, again, probably become less transactional, and brands may become more agnostic to where people are making their end purchases, but most important, focusing on what's the experience that people are having.
Yeah, I think I'm very excited about what the new normal in physical retail will look like, because I feel like consumers now are even savvier than before. So now that they know how to buy something on e-commerce and they know the best way to get it, they'll go, why should I bother leaving the house to go to a store when I can buy something online? So I feel like physical retailers need to create a reason for people to go out, and they need to create new omni-channel strategies to that sort of understand that consumers, it's not a linear path anymore, the way that people purchase. Sometimes they'll research online and then they'll go to your store. If your brand is in a marketplace, they might find it there. They might do some research, go onto your Insta to check out the brand there, just to see how other people are wearing your product. And so I think it's those retailers that are able to create a beautiful in-store experience, but that's also complemented by excellent convenience at the same time, which is where I think a great omni-channel experience, that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, and that's the complexity too, is managing all those points.
It is.
Experience to be consistent. There are more and more touch points all the time. So
the digital one, it becomes a point of occasion, but for even to me and every retailer, when you're on the website, when you're on the digital channel, they know everything, what you're doing, what you're looking, what you're watching, what you're tracking. But when they go to the store, most time you don't know what's physically, the data's not there. As much as the online world gives you so much data, you get virtually zero data. But some clever innovations retailers are doing for engagement. So as soon as you walk into the store, you can use things like beacons and Bluetooth, but you can even point your phone to the price tag of something. They can start giving you reviews of that product. So you're engaging with them through the digital channel in the physical store. But the moment you do that with the phone, they get your IP address and start getting digital data on you. So they can't, even if they don't know you, they know what you're looking at. So the nirvana is that level of personalization in online eventually has to come offline in the physical store. And that's into clienteling and providing that experience. And technology is catching up. We have customers who are doing that amazing experiences both online and offline. So it's a point of you want to go there because the experience is so great and it's for you. So the stores aren't going away, but the roles they play and how they evolve is definitely changing.
100%. I thought it was quite amusing when Christopher was saying trying to deal with consumers' expectations versus reality. In the Asian Retail Outlook survey that we just ran, we actually found that the biggest concerns, or the areas in which consumer expectations have changed the most, have been around delivery. They want more options than before. They want faster delivery, and now they're expecting more omni-channel options. So, what are some of the ways that you guys have noticed consumers' expectations have changed since COVID hit? Who would like to kick us off?
Yeah, so I think I can just kick off with, I think, two things. Aside from, yes, customers are now wanting their deliveries to be delivered a little bit faster, but fortunately, Zalora has always been one of those very prompt, delivering. We have 76% net promoter score, which is one of the highest, if not the highest, across e-commerce in the region. So our delivery service is actually on point, and that's why we're confident in offering fulfillment as a service to brand partners. So in that part, we're pretty confident in what we deliver. But at the same time, we don't rest on our laurels. Again, the complexity of Southeast Asia in general is pretty hard to crack, especially right now where there will be some disruptions every now and then given the multiple closures. Just this week, Malaysia has announced a full lockdown again, with other markets starting to tighten their grip on how to maintain and manage this virus. So, it's really unprecedented, but at the same time, it's really forcing us to be more innovative in and how we do things. The second part is a lot to do with payment options. I think payment options has always been one of those, barriers of entry for a very traditional market like Southeast Asia, where cash on delivery is still, the preferred payment method in most markets. Of course, barring markets like Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, which is a little bit more advanced, but when you go to the rural parts of Indonesia and the Philippines, where credit card penetration is a little bit lower, we needed to make sure that people be able to buy. And that's why, we work with a lot of different payment partners, from GrabPay to your buy now, pay later partners like Atom or Ula or Lai. We've worked with cross different payment options so that most people would be able to buy products on Zalora, and that their barrier of entry has been lowered. So a lot of this really is part of that. How do we make it, that customer experience a little bit better for everyone? So delivery is important, but at the same time, payment is also important. And overall, just the whole website app experience. We've focused a lot on our mobile app because 80% of our sales actually came from mobile apps. Southeast Asia in general is a mobile-first region, so being able to execute a lot of things, campaigns, from the visuals, connect the social appetite to the app is a big factor and a big technology driver for us. How do we integrate both? As Imran have mentioned, it's really about meeting where customers are, and a lot of the customers in Southeast Asia are on mobile. They're on social. A lot of the social capitals in the world are actually in Southeast Asia, from the Philippines to Indonesia. So it's very important for brands and retailers like us to be in those kinds of platforms.
Brilliant. Imran, did you want to add anything to that around changing consumer expectations?
Yeah, this whole behavioural pattern we refer to as shopping on the edge. Consumers are increasingly, as Christopher mentioned, browsing and using digital touch points, when it's convenient. A good example was Kit Kat. Everyone knows Kit Kat, the chocolate. There's a big store in Sydney which was closed due to COVID. So they ran a live. It was the first time, I think, in APAC. It happened in December, just gone. It was a live Facebook feed, and they were talking about the different chocolates, and you could do live ordering through Facebook while you're watching this event. So it totally seamlessly did the engagement through the social channel to a store and allowed you to transact all seamlessly at the time, which was highly successful. So consumers now, everyone's talked about Flipkarts and, Lazada and Amazon, and they have shifted people's expectations. Amazon Prime, the experience it gives you, it's amazing. Next day delivery guaranteed in a lot of big cities, or even 4-hour delivery. So once that you get used to something, you expect everyone to maintain that level of experience. So you're forced to now, because others are going to do it. If you don't, people will just shift. Convenience plays a big role, so they will drive to whatever's convenient. So you have to listen to the consumers, and you have to efficiently change your route to market to align to those channels.
Yeah, I just have to say, Imran, that I actually went to that Kit Kat chocolaterie that opened in Sydney last year, and I think hands down it was one of my favourite things of the whole year.
It's amazing.
It had a sushi train that had like little chocolate dishes all around it. It was just the best. Which, I'm a big proponent of physical retail and e-commerce, Christopher, too. I think both go together, but it was just chef's kiss. Anyway, I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Thank you to Adam, Imran, and Chris for joining us. And a big thank you to our sponsors, KPMG, CGID, Impact, and Salesforce for today. Don't forget to follow us on Inside Retail Asia at LinkedIn to keep up to date with all the latest news in Asia. Thanks, guys.